Oh, yawn.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Kidlit International. Today I have with me Chris from Turkey, Karen from Sydney, and Emma from Brisbane. And we are going to talk about the age-old controversialness. Is that a word? I don't know. Controversy. Um, the highs and the lows of distribution. How do we get our books seen? How do we get them out there? Is there a difference between self-publishing, traditional publishing? For me, it's really a hard game. Just
Very.
getting your books into bookshops, getting them seen online where there's a million other books in the genre that you're putting a book on. It's a whole can of worms. Networking is so constant, and there's no guarantee at the end of the day that you'll get a sale through however you've distributed. So, opening up the room, Chris, we might start with you because you're not in
Um,
Australia.
Indeed.
Tell us your experience.
Actually, great thing. Looking at my sales, I have had a sales in Australia this week, so quite chuffed about that. Um, Distribution has become even worse, even in the last month or so, particularly with illustrated books, because Amazon now won't do the extended distribution of illustrated books. So if you're self-publishing with Amazon, you're kind of stuck with just Amazon, and where they send it to becomes a bit of an issue. Being here in Turkey, it's we have 100% import duty, the cost of shipping, the price of the book suddenly becomes excellent. I can pay rent for a month. Um, and we as authors aren't seeing any of that. Um, it's fine if you're in the US or the UK because it's print on demand. Um, Australia's certainly as a market for international authors becoming easier to access, but the rest of the world is really, really difficult. Um, I've looked at is it worth having a traditional publisher to try and do this? Yes, they have the sales channels, but even then, they're sending maybe one, two books to a bookshop, and even they're not selling at the moment because there's a lack of money all around the world, as we know. Um, I saw book sales in the US are down 75% year on year, which is terrifying in not just as authors, but in many ways, people not reading as much is really quite scary. But getting those books out to people and finding routes to distribution, it's just getting harder and harder. When I first started, the two things I wanted to see was A, my book in print, and B, my book in a bookshop. And thankfully, I have a friend in the UK who walked into his local bookshop and said, "Can you stock this?" So I have a photo of my book in a bookshop. Um, but it is that don't rely on social media, don't rely on networking in that respect to get your book in a bookshop. You actually have to get your feet on the ground, walk into the bookshops and ask them to stock it. But then they need to make money as well. So by the time you've built in the cost of the book, the cost of printing, actually, what's left for us as writers? Because the bookshops need to make money. We're getting smaller and smaller diminishing returns, and distributing our books is just getting harder and harder. There will be a solution. The world always finds a solution. Um, Kindle helps, but not with illustrated books. How can you put a children's illustrated book on a Kindle? It's not going to work. Um, it's fine with my chapter books, but it's still very, very difficult to get our books out there. I'm lucky here we actually have a library, um, which I only found recently after 10 years of living here, um, that's got loads of English books, Turkish books, and just walking in and walking around surrounded by all those books feels amazing. But I'm looking at the books they've got and going, it's the same high-end authors by traditional publishers. Um, it's the only way of actually getting your book out there going through traditional publishing. And it's an answer I don't think any of us really have right now because the publishing industry is changing so dramatically. I dread to think how many books come out per day. It really is quite scary. Because now it's so easy to get your book out there. But how you cut through the noise, get bookshops to stock your book where you can actually make money out of your book, it is getting harder and harder and harder because everyone's costs are going up and they need to cover their costs and make money as well.
Yeah, it certainly is a hard gig, isn't it, Chris? Karen, you've done published both traditionally and self-published. What's your experience?
I found that my self-published book is my most successful, and it's not on Amazon or anything. It's only sold locally, and we don't even have a bookshop, but it's sold in the Tourist Information Centre and post office and address shop. And it's sold through word of mouth, feet on the ground, and networking within my community. I have found my sales for it have been phenomenal, and they don't come from writing colleagues at all, or even at attendance at your book launch. It was me and my community. I don't have a writing community here. People aren't going to come down from Sydney to me because I don't go up to Sydney. I go up rarely, but I do go to Canberra to book launches. I have a great community there. And I did have a launch in Canberra. And the Book Cow in Kingston is a wonderful bookshop that does support all creatives, whether you're with the big five or you're a small, and that's a rarity because most of the bookshops or the retail outlets, they have someone has an in, and it's the big name authors, and you're never going to get a little person's never going to get their book in Target or Kmart or anything like that. You dream and love, as they say. So I really don't know how, if you're with a small press, you even get your book out much because they have suppliers, and if you're not on that suppliers list, you don't get invited to even have your book looked at by
Mm.
them. And if you go into a bookshop, a lot of the time they'll go, "Oh, you're not on my suppliers list," so they won't stock your book. So I've been very lucky that my self-published book is one that has an emotional hook and connects to my community. My traditionally published, my first three came out in COVID, so that killed them.
Yeah.
Um, and it was pretty disappointing. But you just but you have to say to yourself, it's nothing to do with the writing or the quality of the book, because the books have won awards and have been recognized. So
Mm.
you know that. And I now have Vespa published traditionally, but I'm waiting to see how it goes. I've been doing work, but you can do whatever you like on social media, but that doesn't mean it's going to translate to sales. But I don't
Oh,
have the control now to take Vespa and stock her around locally, but she also doesn't have the local connection. Um, so I don't know how you hook her in. She's more into a Halloween market and quirky, original, creative thinking, um, taking control yourself, self-belief, conquering fear. So you have to know where the book taps in to find the market. And that in itself is hard because there are lots of books that cover those themes. And how do you get yours noticed? I do a lot of things within community, and that helps, but that doesn't make a huge amount of sale. I'm lucky with our Shellharbour, it keeps ticking over, but I've got to put my foot on the pedal again to get it moving again because I've just had a holiday and I've had a break from writing and everything because I had a lot going on. So I just needed a clear head, and I'm doing a project locally now with the local Nantian temple. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do the book because we're about to go to print, and that book has a huge market, but it's a totally different community to what we're used to. And this book is outside the box, and so is this community. So I'm really excited to see how that goes because it's a very special book and it can fit a niche market, but it can also fit a huge worldwide market. So the appeal of that book's great, and I'm really interested to watch how it goes. And it's the same with a local book. It has huge appeal because it has an emotional hook to people who know me. And you get people who are invested in following you. But it's a delusion if you think you've got 20,000 followers or something and you're going to sell 20,000 books. It doesn't work that way. People will watch and they want to know what you're doing, or fellow creatives will actually watch what you're doing, but that doesn't mean they'll buy your book. They want to know what you're doing.
Mm.
And they're happy for you if you're doing well, but it doesn't mean, they've got their own books to do. They're worrying about themselves. So you've got to just do your thing and keep on, as Chris said, you just keep on keeping on and see where you go and try and think outside the box. So I've been very, very fortunate now with this new project. And I am fortunate with my local book, but I'm also fortunate with Vespa that she has a more global appeal than a local appeal. If I can find a way to get her hooked in a channel, it will work. But getting in and swimming in that channel is really hard. But you just keep trying. That's all you do because you love it
Yeah,
and you get excited because they're like your baby. All of mine are my babies. I'll talk about them and I cry. Like they've all got something of me in them. And so I guess in a way, when you think, oh, my book hasn't had that many sales or whatever, feels like a bit of a rejection of you and your heart, because your book's your heart, but it's not. It's just the world. And it's really good for the local book because I know why I wrote it and it is the reason I wrote it is how people are responding to it. It was for my kids, my Shellharbour kids, and they know where they live and they know how lucky they are. And this is where we live, this is what we do, and aren't we cool? And they know they get that book and they're like, yes, we're unique and we're distinct. And hey, aren't we good? So, and I have a lot of fun with that book because I will go to the kids and when I go and I say to them, where do all the cool kids live? And they go, Shellharbour. And
yeah,
I tell them they're smart and this is where we go and this is what we do. And the schools love it because there are no books that hook into here. And now they have a book. And the kids go, this is our book, this is our place. So if a book hits that spot, I think it can go big, even if it's self-published. So there's always someone who will hit that spark and it could go huge. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
you, but you can keep dreaming and hoping. Anyway, I've
Always dream, always hope.
talked for too long, so I hope that helped.
Yeah, yeah.
With the
Yours is a very niche market, and that's
you
to
can go
your area,
with it.
and
Job.
that's why it's doing so well.
Yeah,
Not on Amazon, not on
yeah,
any of those channels, and it just proves that yeah, there are other ways that you can distribute your book and have it do well.
yeah.
You have to think outside the box. Emma, you've got some experience in this area. What's yours?
I'm still learning a lot. I will be learning through my first traditional published title next year, how that goes with distribution. And I'm doing a lot of research into how to give that book the best chance from my side as an illustrator. And then I've worked on a lot of self-published titles. I'm a very proactive illustrator with my authors. I will go to I love going and connecting to my local community, and I'm really lucky to be in Brisbane that has a really supportive writers community. We have a great writers networking group, and we have really supportive independent bookstores, and that's really, really great. And then there's some little publishers here as well. So I've done a lot of the, boots on the ground, cover to cover, like door to door salesman, cover to cover, bookstore to bookstore salesman, sort of advocating for books to be stocked in bookstores, doing book launches, and selling at events. My experience selling at events is it's hard to make your money back if you have to travel. If it's local, it's a bit easier. If you've got travel costs like accommodation and like a flight, that's hard to sort of make your money back. So that's more for getting people aware, like getting your name and your book out there. Yeah, and then we're sort of looking at the, authors having their own websites, sort of how you can leverage online spaces and marketing to help with book sales. I think it's important, even though it might not equate to sales always, it's good to be searchable. It's good to have an online presence. It gives you, I said, like it builds up that legit sense of brand. So having a website space to talk about you and your book and having some sort of social media that invites people to have a little look behind the curtain does help build that story. I think because like people are sort of being more judicious in their purchases, particularly around books, particularly around competing with technology and reading at the moment. You've got to be a little bit more than just a book. You've got to sort of offer the story behind the book to get sales. So who you are, why you wrote the book, a little bit of your background. If you have sort of a story to sell behind books, that really helps. I find if I'm selling a book that's based on a real life animal and there's a photo of the animal on the back, and that kind of helps. Like it's that real life story that I can imagine with Shell Harbour, like that real world tie, that story becomes really important to helping sell the book. But it is really difficult, especially if you're self-published, to get your book into bookstores. And even if you're using different publishing avenues, like bookstores do only stock a handful of books at a time. They can only take like 1 to 3 copies. So it is, yeah, it's really tricky. So if you are going on this crazy journey as publishing a book as a writer or an illustrator or both, the most important thing that I keep coming back to at the moment is creating something you really, really love. Because if you really, really love it, like you have that authenticity, sorry, and that genuine love and passion for your book, that gives you a lot of mileage in doing all that hard work to selling your book. And also I think a lot of people can pick that up. So if you've sort of got that story around your book, why you've written it, who you are, that really helps. And if you've got that love for that book, no matter the publishing journey, I think that helps a lot, because there is a lot of labor from book creators that that goes into getting books into the hands of customers. There's a lot of work, especially as writers. Like, I think writers are amazing. These guys are the backbone of the industry in a lot of ways, because a lot of that labor does fall onto you. So as an illustrator, I'm always looking to see how I can support writers, because without writers, I wouldn't have anything to illustrate. So this isn't a super direct answer, because I'm still learning. I don't know if I've found that magic bullet, but I would love to come back in a year or a year to a few years' time, after seeing how some of the books I've illustrated, how they go in the world. And I'll come back with my report and be like, this is what I've learned. Because I feel like with every book you learn something. And I don't even know if say you had success writing in a niche, or had success with this like marketing, or had success with something to do with e-commerce, if that's even replicable, like if that will work with the second book. Maybe it is a case of each book has its own journey, and you're constantly changing up how you deliver that book into the world. It's got to be different, because each book is like, it's like a person, you know, they've got a different personality, and their journey in the world's going to be different. So that's sort of my thoughts around it at the moment, but maybe I'll have some more insight, because I've got a few titles that are going into print and being released by the end of this year, early next year, through mid next year. I'm going to see how it goes. So there'll be a lot of learning there. So every time you release a book, I definitely think there's a lot of learning. And yeah, it's great to share that within your community as well, if you've got those networking spaces, because somebody might have a great idea.
Yeah, well, I think it is important. Like, I think, like, you know, you've all touched on the story behind the story is so important. And putting that out there, not just putting the book out there, but the story, the backstory is really important. Like, Chris, you're always putting out with your stray dogs, the dogs on the
Yeah.
beach, you know,
Yeah,
because that
I've just been
is so
smiling
linked.
because they're howling outside at the moment. So you may have heard them in the background.
Yeah. You know, and Karen, you've got a connection with each of your stories, and they're all personal. They're all really personal, and you haven't held back in saying what they are. So it's a story behind the story. You're not just selling the final result.
Yeah.
It's everything in the lead up to it, and after the launch. That's the hard slog, and I don't know what the answer is to more sales. We just keep plodding along, and the industry is just changing every single day at a really fast pace. Amazon, like you said, Chris, is KDP. You know I got an email this morning. I got an email last week. Changing, just changes being made. Amazon, changing. Ingram Spark, I got an email from them because they're connected to Amazon. It's all changing, and it's like, how do you keep up with it? But, you know, every time I finish reading an email, it's like, well, I don't know how these changes are going to improve anything. There's no guarantees. If we do X, it's going to make Y better. It's just is what it is, and it's the state of the world. And I think it's really important that you pointed out, Karen, that if your book doesn't sell, you can't take it personally. It's just is what it is. But if you're passionate about it, like the three of you are, and just keep going, keep pushing through with it, and surely something wonderful has to come of it. So all your experience is great. Everyone's experience is different. Yep, cross our fingers and all the pause and everything. It's all over the world. It's not just us here in Australia. There's massive issues everywhere. Sales, unfortunately, are down in Kidlit, have been for a while, and they're probably going to keep going down before they go up again, unfortunately. That just seems to be what I pick up on. We just have to ride that wave and hopefully come out in one piece the other end. So thank you everyone for sharing your stories. It's always fabulous to hear, and we'll chat again next week.